Hi there, it is August and we are live again. And I feel slightly guilty because we were able to be together just recently. So I'm like, oh, now we're back online.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm glad we have this as a supplement.
Yes,
So,
as bonus things. I
who
did
are you?
what?
Who are you?
I know. I did that week flew by. So I kept going, oh, let's try and do one more live while we're in person. And I just couldn't it was
We
just
never did. Yeah.
no, it was just crazy between your session getting moved and my set, like it just didn't work. So
Right.
we should probably introduce ourselves.
That's what it is.
We're just continuing on the conversation. Hi, my name is Tricia Broderick.
I am Diana Larsen.
And we co-wrote Lead Without Blame and Building Resilient Learning Teams. And we decided very early on to keep coming back and keep talking about things that are in the book, things that we may have expanded further, like, a second book kind of dynamic, or just kind of engaging based on what topics are coming up or things for the month. And so we're doing this. We don't have a set date, but we do try. It is kind of starting to land on the first Friday of the month, but that can always change depending on our schedules, our travel, life, all sorts of things. So it's not a guarantee that will always be the first Friday of the month as we're going. But this month's topic, we decided, is going to be exploration. And I thought we might want to start off with kind of, and I actually know if I've ever asked you this question before, but what's the difference a little bit for you? Your glasses driving you nuts.
Yeah,
I had that the other day where my hair was stuck in my hair. So one side was higher and it was like driving me bonkers.
Right.
How do you differentiate or define or distinguish between exploration and experimentation? Do you differ between them?
Well, I think experimentation is a form of exploration, I guess is what I would say. It's a specific, experiments are, you have a hypothesis, blah, 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 right? And exploration can take a lot of different forms. One of the things I was thinking about in terms of exploration is when we talk about the leadership behavior of courage and being willing to say, I don't know, let's go figure it out together. That to me is a broader kind of exploration, willingness to explore what are the possibilities out there, what is it that we don't know about this yet, those kinds of things, more than just an experiment which has a very specific kind of path to take, although sometimes we use the word more broadly than that, I think.
Yeah, I one of these times we're going to highlight something and demonstrate these are completely unscripted and be like, no, I disagree. Like, I'm totally different. But in this case, I'm very in alignment too. I tend to think of exploration as pure curiosity, pure discovery without any kind of possibility or a path. Like for me, an experiment is, okay, I've decided something. Now I got to test if it's valid or not valid. Right. Exploration for me is like, I just don't know. I have nothing and I need to just go and learn and discover and be curious about what, and it will and often lead to experiments for me. But it's kind of the precursor to it for me.
Right. And, we talked last month about my time in June when I went to Europe and I said I was doing an adaptive planning experiment. Right. Well, in reality, it was an exploration. That was an experiment. I did want to find out, would I be able to pull that off without having everything planned in advance? And I did have a hypothesis about I probably would be able to. But the exploration part of it was, what is it that will show up and what kinds of opportunities will I get? And, I could have still done the adaptive planning and had a very different experience. But the exploration part was, what's this experience going to turn out to be? And that's the curiosity, I think, like you said, and the discovery portion of it is is really important there.
That actually makes me actually have words to something that I've always said. Like when I'm experimenting, I leave myself open to what may emerge, right? To
Right.
what might also be there that really wasn't the original part of the experiment, but ends up being a super valuable thing. So that's actually wonderful words for me. Is like, even when I'm experimenting, I'm still exploring, right? I'm still open to what might happen. Yeah, thank you for that. Like now I can put words to, like, because I think that's a huge part of sometimes I can get so locked in my experiment that I miss something that's like massive right there because I stopped
Right.
exploring. Well,
And there's a lot of, there's a lot of discussion now in like academic research and things like that, particularly psychological research, where people do experiments or are trying to prove a hypothesis and ignore the data that might disprove it, right? They only look for the data that will prove it. And if you do it that way, you really run
bias,
huge risks of missing a lot, right?
massive
Yeah.
bias in your
You're
brain.
posing your own bias on it, right?
So what do you gain most when you just pure curiosity, pure exploration, not down to the experiment levels, but what do you find most beneficial when you're in that state of pure exploration?
Well, I probably talk about it as being curious, or sitting in inquiry is another way of, like being willing to just hold a question that I have without trying to get to an answer too quickly, but exploring more of the what all is involved with this question. Um, I I live that way a lot, and so, and I think it keeps my thinking fresh. Being open to possibilities that of things that I would not have. One time, years and years ago, I was playing a game with some neighbors, and it was one of those collaborative game things where you ask each other questions. And my neighbor drew a card and said, you know, what are your goals? Where do you think you'll be in 5 years? And I was just kind of stunned by it, because when I looked back at any particular 5 year chunk of my life, I would never have predicted in the beginning where I ended up at the end of that 5 year period. And so, knowing that, it was really hard for me to say going forward. And so I just, I pretty much said, well, I'm going to keep looking for the doors that open, and um, and I will find wonderful things. I mean, I couldn't really be more explicit than that, because I just knew that, setting that kind of hard goal for myself was going to lock me in her mind, at least, to some particular outcome that I didn't believe I would get to that. I thought it was entirely possible I would arrive at something more wonderful.
I would
And yeah.
Oh, sorry. I would definitely like, I'm going to flip this for a minute and go, you completely live this, right? Like you live this while we wrote, you relive this in our relationship, you live this in every aspect. Here's the benefit, like not even just for myself when I'm exploring, here's the benefit of engaging with someone that this is core to their identity, is it is freaking inspiring. Like it's it makes it okay to not know. It made me feel okay to learn. It had a dynamic of, ooh, like that's, see, look at that, like it was inspiring, and it made me want to level that part of me up, because it is such a core part of who you are and how you show up all the time. And the benefits, not only for a person who's exploring for themselves, but a benefit for somebody that's working with somebody, that's collaborating with somebody. It was powerful for me. Like it it was all the things we talk about in terms of like creating psychological safety or creating a learning environment and things like that. It was role modeling it, right? But it was role modeling it in such a way that it was inviting. And it was like, you were like, okay, let's dig in, let's see what happens. And as somebody who loves her check marks, it was freeing, right? So I don't know if I ever really even thought about that. I think this is one of the things I love about these conversations most, is because they're reflective in terms of what magic was happening, even that we weren't talking about necessarily, right? But absolutely the benefit in even engaging with somebody that's exploring and being core to who they are, it made me embrace it way more too.
Yeah. Oh, well, thank you. That's great to hear. I would say that it feels like a gift when I work with someone who is kind of willing to be side by side and go on that journey with me together. Right. And who is willing to kind of let go of their predictable outcomes and stuff. I mean, we created a Miro outline. We created all these things.
Yes, it wasn't that we didn't do any of that.
Right. Yeah. We did all those things. And I would just sort of gently say, this is great. It's good that we start with this, but we're not going to end up with this. Right.
Not actually, although it might be funny to go look at it now versus what it ended up for.
Yeah.
The difference, right?
Right. But I think that's important. It's if I think about it through the learning leader lens, your willingness to support me in my desire for exploration, for leaving the doors open until we absolutely needed to close them, sort of the real options thing, right? Is, was a huge gift back as in your leadership role in this. I mean, you set up the Google Doc. You did a lot of those structural things that we needed in order to be free to explore, right? So that support for our learning was hugely important to me. Well, and I don't think if I hadn't detected that possibility in you, I don't know that I would have accepted the offer that we would write together. Right. So there's a lot there both ways. Yeah.
Well, and I think that's the interesting part of it too, is like, exploration doesn't just mean 20,000 rates. Like we did have some constraints. We did have some dynamics that helped us be able to really, and in fact, Josh Bedell kind of highlights dig in, right? And the more that we can take in as in his comment of like being able to go deeper where we wanted to explore and go deeper, and yet not be in 20,000 places that made it impossible to move forward. Right. Yeah. And so I think there is that complementary dynamic that helps make exploration even more effective.
Well, yeah. And, my mom was an art teacher. And so I learned a lot about creativity as I was growing up. And I continued to learn with her throughout my adulthood. But the idea that creativity only thrives within boundaries, within restrictions. I mean, the publisher had restrictions that they put on us. The editor had some restrictions. She wanted to make sure that there would be something about retrospectives in this book because she really loved retrospectives. There were certain kind of points we had to hit and boundaries that we needed to stay between. And I think that helped us to be more exploratory because we knew where the edges were. And so, yeah. And, starting out with some structure, even though, you might be ditching it later on, but it gives you some guidance, this is how we can go. Yeah.
Well, I think it also helped us to see where you wanted to go deeper, right? Where we wanted to sit in that inquiry, where we're like, oh, wait, there's something there. Let's dig in. And it helped us to spot those moments with things. So here's we're already getting close on timeline when we're with those things, but what's an area you're currently exploring?
Well, there's a couple of things. One is I'm exploring new ways of working more in Europe, exploring some of the new directions that may be coming out of Agile has won. It's my new tagline, I guess. And, things like, well, how do we put a lot of really of the goodness of Agile together? And I think fast, for instance, is one of the ways that we're doing that. I'm also working with Alan Renbo Jepson on his impactful organizations work. Because that's not at the team level, that's at the very higher, more strategic level. And I've done some work at that level, but not as much as I would like to. So I'm exploring the possibilities for that as well. And just exploring what it means for me to be kind of have one foot in retirement and one foot in still working, and how that blend works out for me. Yeah. What about you?
I've got two kind of spectrum ones. One is a general, like, I am an extrovert and I'm just going to lean in and acknowledge that I live and thrive, especially coming off of Agile 2024 and communities and what that does for me mentally and physically. So I'm exploring communities as a whole, Toastmaster community, National Speaker Association communities, other leadership communities. What communities are out there, and where might I also fit, right? Or what communities might be there? So I'm really just kind of looking at communities as a whole and exploring the landscape of them. A more tactical one that I've been starting to look at, especially as we head into election season and things like this, is getting better skilled in terms of communicating, like exploring different communication models. And I'm really starting to kind of look at what techniques are out there for reframing, what kinds of techniques are out there for difficult conversations. I just want to explore more in terms of what communication knowledge and wisdom is out there that I just haven't seen or dug into yet or been aware of. And this one's been going on for a while. I think it kind of really started for me a little bit with Think Again by Adam Grant, but I'm wanting to dig in and explore more there, just with a pure curiosity mindset of not any one problem I'm trying to fix or anything along those lines. Is just, it will lead to experiments. I'm confident of that. But it's just something that I know I want to explore what's possible there more.
Yeah. Well, I think something that we're both embarking on is the Agile Network.
Yes.
And exploring what possibilities are there. I mean, sort of just stepping into it it's new. And so there's not a lot of information out there about what it's going to do and be, other than the hopes and dreams of the founders of it, which are inspiring. And so that's another exploration that
and that one aligns with my community, but also for me a little bit I'm in that experiment mode with the Agile Network, but also being open to exploring what's possible and where we're going with it. So what do you have coming up?
Well, next week I'm going to be doing a LinkedIn Live with you. That is more through the Agile Network. At the end of the month, I'm going to be in San Francisco with a Miro City tour, San Francisco and Seattle, a West Coast. I'll be in my own time zone. Woohoo! And then in October, I've got the Thermodynamics of Emotion Symposium and the PNSQC, Pacific Northwest Software Quality Conference. And then at the end of October, I'm going to be speaking at Agile Turkey, which is a thing that just came together, and I'm pretty excited about.
Well, that's amazing.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Now you got me in my head about that, man. So you mentioned it. What I've got, the Agile Network. I'm putting in comments. They're currently doing, that last one concatenated it together, but here, I'll do it separately. they're currently kind of doing different codes for people of getting onto it and having exploring it and seeing and looking at that. So you can check that out with those codes. I think those codes work till the end of the month, and then hopefully I'll get a new set of codes or something. Well, again, we're figuring out as experiment. But Diana and I will be doing we're going to pick a section of the book for Lead Without Blame, a small section, and kind of really dig into it for that session on the 7th of this month on the Agile Network. And then I have a virtual ACSM next week, but I think it's full. So I don't have the next one scheduled yet, but I think this one is full. But I do have a couple seats left in the Leading Amazing Teams course virtual that I do with Jake Calabrese in 2 weeks. So I think there's a couple seats left for that. And then apparently October is my month for speaking. Like I am doing Innovate. I'm the keynote for Innovate over in Virginia. I'll be doing in Denver here, keynote for WCIT. And then I will also be at TechWell's conference in Orlando in October as well. And there might be 2 more that I can't quite announce yet.
Yeah.
But they're not Turkey. I'm just going to
stay tuned for September. Yeah.
So stay tuned for September. There are 2 more that are not finalized yet, but working on it in terms. But yeah, October is going to be my other crazy conference month, apparently. So I'll get all my people in person feel in October, and then that's got to last me for a little bit as we're going through the end of the year. And with that,
yeah, we're at time.
We have our next live date set, and it will be the first Friday of the month of 9/6. Actually, I didn't look. Is that Labor Day?
No, it's the next weekend. Yeah.
I was like, oh, did we do that on that right? Okay. Yeah. Or no, actually, it's the previous one. So okay.
Yeah, that's the previous weekend. Yeah.
Yep. So until then, we'll see everybody. If you have questions or you have a topic that you want us to chat about, let us know. Thanks, Josh, for commenting while we're live. It's always a pleasure, and we'll see everybody next time.
Bye.